Well, Parliament has returned after a 5-week break, with the Albanese government facing a fresh fight on welfare and housing. The Housing Fund was supposed to be up and running by now, but the legislation has been stalled in the Senate. For more on this, I'm joined by Senator Pauline Hanson, leader of the One Nation Party. Pauline, good morning to you. Well, the Greens are refusing to support the government's strategy for solving the country's housing crisis. They're continuing to push for the government to coordinate with states to impose a 2-year national rent freeze. Where do you stand on this?
Lucy, I think they're both wrong. I don't believe the housing policy that Labor has put up is going to work. Let's go through the facts of it. They want to borrow $10 billion, put it into a fund, hoping they'll get investment from that fund of $500 million a year to build 30,000 houses over 5 years. The future fund actually went backwards of more than 3%. So there's no guarantee. It's like a gambler out there. Is there a guarantee they're actually going to get a win? No, it's not. So of that $500 million a year, it only breaks down to $83,000 a house, where the average cost of building a house is $476,000. So it doesn't add up. It's all smoke and mirrors by the Labor Party to look like they are the ones who are solving the housing problem. The only way to solve the housing problem: stop immigration of 7,000 people a week coming into the country, stop foreign investment buying up our housing, and that is a start, not the housing policy. Why borrow money to hand it out and not knowing if we're going to get investment on it? So I think it's wrong. Also, the Greens to say to put a rent freeze. I've spoken to so many people who had rental properties that are now selling them up. They're getting out of the rental market. No government or anyone has a right to tell those who buy up investment houses, rent them out, to tell them if they should have a rent freeze. That's not the way it works in a free, democratic country.
Yeah, and many would argue in agreement with that on the rent freeze as well, but many also arguing that we do actually need more houses to be built, and this is, while it might not be the answer, it is at least a start, this housing strategy, and people just want to see something done. So I guess what is the answer? I know you said put a pause on foreign investors. As it stands, non-Australians can only buy a residential property if it's a new building or a vacant lot, and you can only purchase existing dwellings if they commit to a large renovation that helps to increase the housing supply. So is there a simple solution here, or do we just need to start doing something?
Losing foreign investors. On the last census night, there was 1 million homes left vacant in Australia. Right, so these foreign investors, what they come out here, they do business in Australia, they dump their money here because they don't want to go back to China and pay huge monies in taxes. You've got foreign students that come in here buying houses and the huge stamp duty they're paying, and then they leave the country without selling the house. The Foreign Investment Review Board is not doing their job of investigating these houses that are being bought up. At the point of sale, my policy is the point of sale, the real estate agent or the solicitor must view a passport or a document stating that that person who buys the house must have the authority or the right to buy that house. Stop it at the very beginning. The Foreign Investment Review Board are so understaffed with only about a half a dozen people, they can't do the job. They don't investigate all the housing. This is the big problem. Give Australians the opportunity to buy the houses that they want and not give it to foreign investors. Canada and New Zealand have stopped it in their own countries. Surely we can see the benefits of doing it here in Australia, especially with the housing crisis. And also, the cost of land. You know, on top of building the house, the cost of land in most places now, you're looking at least $150,000, $200,000 for a block of land. Who's going to pay for that on top of the cost of building a house? It doesn't make sense the way the government is heading down this path. It's all about buying votes, not solving the problem.
There are other suggestions, such as an unoccupancy tax on residential property with a higher rate for those non-residents who don't live in those. I mean, that potentially could be the answer without stopping foreign investment. But let's move on now. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, there was threats of a potential for a double dissolution election if this housing policy doesn't get passed. He's since said that won't happen. Was that just a distraction, do you think?
He's making idle threats. I'm saying bring it on. Bring it on. I got no problem with it. But the fact is, you know, he's the Prime Minister of this country. Don't make idle threats because you're not getting your own way, because you're throwing the toys out of the cradle. That's what it sounds like to me. The fact is that he's never come to me to sit down and talk to me about the policies to do with the housing crisis, you know, and then he accuses One Nation not supporting us. I haven't had a knock on the door from him to talk about the housing crisis. And he's just, you know, fumbling his way through as Prime Minister of this country. He's been too interested in listening about the Voice, pushing for the Voice, the money that's getting poured into that. He hasn't worried about the cost of living, that people are really struggling. They're doing it tough out there. What's his answer to that? What's his answer to the cost of living? Like I said, what he puts forward is all pie in the sky stuff, and what's driving this is policies on climate change and wind turbines and renewables, that billions are going out the door. We should be dealing with the real issues that affect the Australian people, and that's the cost of living and the housing crisis that we have, not the Voice. But anyway, he's committed us to that, and I hope it goes through. I want to see it go through because I want to see it dead and buried and forgotten forever.
Well, let's focus on cost of living and welfare. Labor plans to increase job seeker payments by $56 a fortnight from September to help combat the cost of living. This has been criticised by the Coalition, instead pushing to double the income-free area for job seeker recipients in a bid to encourage people to work without the fear of their benefits being cut. Now, do you agree that we should be increasing welfare during this difficult time, but will that encourage people to stay on welfare, which is what the Coalition is arguing?
Lucy, look, people are doing tough out there, and I have no problem, okay, with $20 a week, $40 a fortnight, and that's what they're advocating. The government said yesterday it's about $6 a fortnight. The problem is that we have just over 156,000 people that have been on welfare for more than a decade. How many have been on it for 20, 30 years? Then you've got another 150,000 that have been on it between 5 to 10 years. Then you've got a couple of 100,000, over a couple of 100,000 been on it for over a year. So the whole fact is that we are paying people to sit around and do nothing when we have a labour shortage in Australia of more than 400,000 jobs. And we've got nearly 900,000 people on unemployment or youth allowance. The fact is, the Coalition now says, oh, well, you can earn $150 a fortnight before it affects your welfare payment, but now we're going to increase it to $300 a fortnight. That's nearly $8,000 a year. So what do you tell your neighbour next door? Well, listen, mate, I can go out and earn some more money, but it's not going to affect my welfare payment, so I'm still going to get this, plus all the benefits. Remember, rent assistance, healthcare assistance, travel assistance, you get plus on top of it. So your neighbour next door says, well, what about me? Can I go out and earn another $8,000 a year and I don't pay tax on it? So you're putting out the wrong message. What I have said all along, welfare should be a helping hand, and that's what it was structured for. So I say to the government, both Liberal and Labor, but they're too gutless to do this, is that in over a 5-year period, we will pay you welfare for 2 of those 5 years period. So when you're doing it tough, we'll give you that helping hand. But you go out there and you get a job. So if you're on welfare, it should be because you are sick, you have a disability, you actually are an aged person, but that's an age pension. So other than that, these people have stayed on welfare for years. I call them lazy, inconsiderate, nothing but bogans who don't want to work or are made themselves unemployable. That's not the society we need, and we keep propping it up time and time again by governments who are too gutless to do anything about it because they are after the vote. That's not helping us or them with future, living standards. So, this is the hole that the government have dug for the people of Australia.
And just lastly, Pauline, quickly, Bureau of Statistics found almost 200,000 Queenslanders were victims of crime in 2022. Your home state, the highest crime rate in the country, and a 15% increase from the year prior. The Palaszczuk government under pressure to fix the crime epidemic, which they have been for 2 years now. It's expected to be the centre during annual budget estimates over the next fortnight. Have they had ample opportunities to fix this and remaining too soft on the issue?
You know what? Palaszczuk needs to go and our police commission needs to go, because you know what? The problem is our police in Queensland are not getting the support and backing that they need. They're getting fed up with being investigated if they may have handled a victim, not a victim, the perpetrator wrongly. So therefore, you know what the police are saying? Oh, well, we're going to not worry about it. So if there's a stolen car driving past, you know what? And this is what a copper told me. He said, you know, I'm fed up with being persecuted over it because they go through everything. Have we done the job right? Did we cross the road? Did we chase them illegally and all the rest of it? And then they're under suspicion. They're put on suspension. They're investigated. And they're saying, we've had enough. So he said to me, you know what? If I see a car driving by, I'm just going to say, wave to it, that stolen car, because they've had enough. Start supporting our police. When you've got 10 to 15 police that are leaving the force a week, that tells you something. It comes from the head. It's rotten from the head down. So they need to deal with those at the head, and we need to encourage good police officers, men and women, to join the force because we desperately need them. And I appreciate everything they do for us to keep us safe. About time we back them.
Appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.